health of any democracy depends upon a robust media or fourth estate. For citizens, the media serves both as a watchdog of government and a window into it. In Washington, the Capitol Press Corps performs these crucial tasks. But how does the Capitol Press Corps function? What is its history, and what challenges does it face? Former Press Corps member David Ammons is a longtime observer of Olympia.
I've been at the Capitol since 1971. I was with the Associated Press there for 37 years. So I've been here almost a third of statehood.
And current Press Corps member Austin Jenkins is well acquainted with the challenges of reporting at the state capitol.
I have for the last decade been the Olympia Capitol-based reporter for the Northwest News Network, which is a consortium of public radio or national public radio affiliate stations in Washington, Oregon, and Idaho.
What is the role of the statehouse reporter? And why is it important for Washington citizens to have a strong Capitol Press Corps?
The Capitol Press Corps is a crucial part of governing ourselves as people of Washington. It is an outside, independent voice that brings back to the people in the communities what's going on in Olympia.
My job is to really hold the public elected officials accountable. It is to help the public understand how their money is being spent so they can be informed voters and citizens. And it's also just to tell the story, the narrative of state government.
There are political parties, there are special interest groups, there are many players in Olympia, and most of them have a point of view. They're looking for something. They see the world through those eyes. And if you have independent observers, watchdogs, if you will, that is so important for the people of Washington.
We want the truth. Everybody has a story and their talking points. And our job as reporters is really to try to sort of chip away at that stuff to get to some central truth. It doesn't mean we just tell you how to think, but we give you enough information so you can make an informed decision.
The Capitol Press Corps consists of two parts. The first part is the residential press corps.
The press corps typically has a resident press corps of people who are stationed here all the time, year-round. They learn to understand the workings of government.
Jim Bruner. So what are the options?
Cover big stories all year long.
The Seattle Times is here on a full-time basis. The Everett Herald, the Spokesman Review, the Associated Press, the Olympian, and the Tacoma News Tribune all have a full-time presence here in the Capitol. Public radio does as well. Test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It won't be in effect for this prom season, but by this time next year, all party bus operators in Washington will have to be registered with the state. I'm Austin Jenkins in Olympia.
There is also a visiting press corps that comes during the legislative sessions. That's a larger press corps, typically are sent by their newspapers or their television and radio stations to watch issues that are prominent in their listenership, readership area.
The Washington State Wire, there's Crosscut. Those are both online publications who have reporters who aren't in these press houses, but they're down here a lot and certainly full-time during the legislative session. Television has a presence in Olympia, but they're really mobile bureaus. In the old days, they actually used to have offices in the Capitol. So they'll come here when there is a story of interest, but they're not based here full-time.
For Jenkins, his job is to follow the money in state government.
We have a $30+ billion two-year budget here in the state of Washington. The legislature comes into town, they appropriate that money, and then it gets dispersed to state agencies that spend it. And they're supposed to be spending it on behalf of the citizens of the state. There are also times when that money is not spent as well as it could be. There are always debates about where it's spent. It's my job to sort of, as I say, be a bit of the cop on the beat.
A critical part of the job is covering statewide campaigns and elections.
Campaigns and elections is one of the most interesting parts of being a Capitol reporter, a political reporter. It's kind of what we all live for.
To understand what happens in Olympia the rest of the year, you absolutely have to understand what's happening on the campaign trail and in the elections. So a lot of my job during campaigns and elections is to focus on the statewide ballot measures and try to help the public anticipate what the effect will be if Measure A passes or fails. When it comes to statewide elections and campaigns, we are trying to help the audience understand who the candidates are, understand what the issues are, trying to truth squad the statements that are being made, and trying to help people put this all in context.
What does a Capitol Press reporter do on a daily basis?
I spend my time, walking around, trying to talk to people and find out what is the untold story, what's really happening, what's likely to happen. And a lot of what happens in the legislature is not what meets the eye, it's happening behind the scenes. And so as much as possible, I try to push back or lift back the curtain. At the end of the day, I know I've done my job if I understand the public policy and I also understand the political framework around a particular topic that I'm reporting on.
What I'm noticing is that they tend to max out to Democrats and Republicans alike.
To do one without the other is to have a blind spot. And I think that ultimately is a disservice to the public.
As a longtime observer of Olympia, Ammons has seen many changes to the press corps over the years.
The changes in the Capitol Press Corps have been just astonishing over the past 40 years. It has shrunk dramatically as statehouse Capitol bureaus have done all around the country. Back in the early 70s, I would say it was more a gavel-to-gavel approach to coverage. It was more watching issues that progressed through the legislative process. As the press corps got smaller, one thing we saw from that was smarter reporting. Time was limited. You began to see that you were going to be writing value-added journalism, long weekend pieces explaining a particular issue and its importance to people back home.
TVW's gavel-to-gavel coverage of the legislature has also enabled reporters to focus more on issues and less on process.
This will give good care for the kids in the foster care system.
The rise of TVW is also a huge plus for unfiltered journalism. It adds to the transparency of covering Olympia.
There is TVW, which is covering what happens here in Olympia on a gavel-to-gavel basis.
The title of the bill will be the title of the act.
But also more and more trying to provide context and programming around this so that the audience has some ability to make sense of what's happening. It's not just unfiltered gavel-to-gavel, it's news of the week explaining what happened in the Capitol.
Senator, what's it like for you to be on the other side?
I think the big story and the disappointment of the past decades is that less resources are available to the press corps now. It's a smaller press corps. It is really down to bare bones right now in Olympia. Nowhere near the rich coverage and the layered coverage that was possible some years ago.
The conventional wisdom is that the press corps has shrunk and that statehouse coverage has gotten weaker, not stronger. And I think numerically you can look and say, yeah, there are fewer full-time reporters here. But that said, we have the advent of online journalism now, and there are some very dogged and aggressive online publications covering the statehouse. I also just think that the press corps, like a lot of places, when you get leaner, you get meaner. And what that means is that we are working harder to be in the aggressive reporters. And aggressive, I don't mean in your face, but aggressively covering state government and really identifying what's happening down here. We realize that there's more responsibility on us. There's fewer of us doing the job.
Our recording devices have gone from the size of a small briefcase to the size of something about the size of a smartphone actually. And this one is really handy. You can actually clip it on your belt for crowd situations where you can't get so close. This shotgun mic is pretty handy. And the other mic I use is this RE50, which has really nice audio quality. So I would use this more for a one-on-one interview. We'll use that today. The other key thing around here is having your press pass so that you can get into doors and the wings of the Senate and the House, and the State Patrol won't stop you. Okay, let's head over to the Capitol.
On one hand, I've got a tweet, but I also still have to do the in-depth stories. And then I have to find ways to tell those in-depth stories in a way that's so compelling, I hope, that people will listen to them.
And they let him go. Joel clearly, in our opinion, qualified to be held for 72 hours at that point.
Can you just remind us how this might have helped your family and Joel?
Well,
but oh, by the way, don't forget to take a picture and maybe shoot some video and provide a web graphic, and then edit your radio story together at the same time and make your deadline.
It is 500 sources of information or more platforms that people can go to consume news. It's no longer simple as reading your morning or afternoon paper and watching the evening broadcasts with your family over dinner.
In the news tonight, an estimated $50 million damage tag on this week's floods in Washington.
So we just heard from the parents of Joel Reuter, so I just want to tweet the fact that the parents of Joel Reuter at Gov Inslee's side as he signs Joel's law. Okay, send that tweet and move on to the next bill.
Despite its shrinking numbers, the need for a robust press corps in our state government is as strong as ever.
The longer I cover Olympia, the more I am aware of how much goes on that I don't know. So much of what happens in politics and public policy is happening, frankly, off camera and away from the microphones. It happens during the interim when the legislature is in session and the candidates are raising money for their campaigns. And the lobbyists and the interests that have business before the legislature are feeding those campaigns with money. And the conversations that are happening about what will be on the docket for the next legislative session, and the deals that are being made in the midst of a legislative session. It's all very orchestrated, it's all very tenuous, and it's all happening largely behind the scenes. And so I am constantly aware of the fact that as a reporter, and I think the late Joe Turner, who was a reporter for the Tacoma News Tribune for many years here in Olympia, at one point said to a lobbyist or somebody, you know, I think I probably know about 10% of what goes on down here. And whoever he said that to, who was an insider, laughed and said, you probably know about 3% of what goes on down here. I am constantly aware of the fact that I probably know 3% of what's going on here, and I've got to improve my average.
A well-informed electorate is absolutely critical and essential to self-government. I worry about the future of the press corps. I trust that it eventually will grow back and be stronger and better supported. It truly is critical to democracy.